Welcome to The MICK Show, where I give you a laid-back look at the lives and businesses of today's most well-respected creatives. You'll learn key life lessons from culture's most prominent personalities, musicians, actors, athletes, and CEOs. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the show. This is The MICK Show. Welcome back to The MICK Show. And this week, man, this is great, man. What I love about what we do on the show is we kind of like bridge the gap between all levels of creativity and all levels of culture. And a lot of times the guests always kind of somehow tie back to my musical roots. And this week's guest is a guy that I've known for, at least 15 years, going back to our shared mixtape roots, right?
Yep.
And now here we are in 2020, grown men doing grown men things. But it's really cool because what I love about what you've done, Clinton, you have literally figured out how to take everything you've learned through hip hop and culture and that hustle. That was entrepreneurship before people even called it that. And you've turned it into literally big business.
It's funny because, I'm glad you pointed that out. And only people like you who have known me for so long and seen what I was doing before, like we were kind of all doing it, right? And like I was calling myself a brand 20 years ago and people used to laugh at me. I used to look at myself as Clinton Sparks was the company and I was the CEO or president of the company Clinton Sparks, right? And the reason I did that is because I could separate my emotions from anything and detach myself from the company and the person. So if someone hated shit I was doing, then it didn't affect me. I looked at it as like, okay, I need to understand what they don't like so I can make some adjustments. If they loved it, it never went to my head personally because I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm running the business right. I always understood marketing and branding and kind of everything I did. I did a lot of things coming up, but I did it intentionally as like a human SEO. Everything I was doing was driving you to the next thing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but, once we've all got older and we've all like learned to give each other the props that maybe we could have given earlier, but people were like, it was competitive at the time. Now that we've all grown up and people look back and like, bro, man, you really inspired me. Like I watched your moves to see what I should be doing. And I didn't even realize how much of an impact or how much of a, leader I kind of was in doing a lot of those things. Like even, I started the first giant kind of e-commerce hip hop mixtape website. There was a bunch of them before me, but I just looked and seen what they were all doing wrong, from the customer service to how they dealt with the DJs, all that stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to do it better than everybody else. And then...
What was that? Was that Mix Unit? Is that what it was?
Mixunit.com. It was so big, $5 million the first year. That's how big it was. So, we became the staple for mixtapes and broke and introduced a lot of DJs to a global market that weren't really recognized outside of their kind of region. Funny side story about that is one of my friends owned a mixtape site at the time. And because we were doing so well, he had to shut down. He came to me and he was like, what am I do now, man? Like, I can't even compete with you guys. And I was like, you know what you should do, bro, is you should go be an aggregator of all the videos of like, stabbings and fights and shit that goes on at like the hip hop clubs that you and I all know what goes on there, right? But the average white kid didn't. So like, I would like, you should do that, maybe an aggregator and just be one website where like all these white kids that never understand what's going on in the hood can go watch it. And that was the creation of Worldstar Hip Hop. And that guy was my buddy Q. There's a lot of things that I've been a part of shaping and shifting the culture that we're all a part of that you wouldn't know unless you knew me and you were around me, because I didn't brag about it or talk about it. I just did dope shit for the good of the culture.
Wow. That Worldstar thing is, I did not know that as much as the subtle nuances of your career as I've followed over the years. I guess not a very happy ending, obviously, for the Worldstar scenario.
Rest in peace, Q. He's a legend.
I think Worldstar almost became a verb, which I thought was really interesting. When things become bigger than the platform that they're on, they're like, oh yeah, that's a Worldstar. Like, it's fascinating how people think like that. You were doing a lot of that still living in Boston, right? Or were you bi-coastal at the time?
No, at that time, because that was still like mid 2000s. So I was, we launched that in 2004. I started radio in 2000. That's when I considered myself a legit DJ. But prior to that, I was just a wannabe. I never would consider myself. People are like, don't you? And I'm like, no. I've always subscribed to that theory. And I've even like kind of tried to implore that to other people of like, you're not a rapper. You're an aspiring rapper. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you're not a DJ. You're an aspiring DJ. There's a big difference. I built my own syndicated radio show. I was on 22 markets. I was actually live in 4 cities, 4 states and 4 stations live every week. I'd be in Boston, New York, Connecticut, and Baltimore. I did that for several years to build my repertoire and reputation with the music industry, like the labels and the artists, because I knew early on the way that artists would do their promo runs. They'd go down the East Coast. So if they see me in Boston and then Connecticut and then New York and then Baltimore all in 1 week, all of a sudden I become a huge value add to them because they're like, if this guy's on all these stations, I need to be his friend because I need him to promote my shit. So I knew that. And I learned that early on because I never even wanted to be a DJ. That was never my goal. I wanted to be a rapper and a producer early on. And so I was producing records. I would do remixes to popular songs. And then the big DJ in my city in Boston would always tell record labels on the phone. I'd overhear him because I'd be in his office. He'd be like, man, my boy Clinton Sparks, he's producing this remix. You should hear it. And they'd always just be like, yeah, cool. Hey, yo, you going to play my new, Brandy record? You going to play my new Biggie record? And I'd be like, damn it. Yo, they really ball suck this dude to play their records. If I just become a DJ, at the very least, they'll have to give me a courtesy listen, right? So I was just like, yo, I'm just going to be a legit DJ. I mean, I already knew how to DJ. I was a DJ at home and I would DJ locally, for all the rappers around my way and I was making beats and stuff, but it wasn't something I was looking at becoming a legit full-time DJ. It was a means to an end. So I became a DJ and started putting out mixtapes, and on my mixtapes, as you know, they were just all original. So I just make all original productions on my mixtape. This mixtapes now that you could hear from me from 15 years ago that is still brand new to you. It's not a compilation of songs that were out back then. It's shit that I made. Once I decided to become a DJ, I then knew that the record labels, from hanging around my friend, I knew how late they were to the game and how behind they were on technology and just pop culture. So I just lied and pretended like I had a super online radio show and got in touch with all the record labels. I was like, man, you'll be doing a big disservice to your artists if you don't come be part of my show. I'm what's popping on the internet, right? So they just added me to their roster. When they'd come to Boston, they do jamming, they do this, they do that, and then they go to Clinton Sparks' studio. My studio was literally my mom's basement. So I had Eminem, Common, Quelly, Wu-Tang, Cameron. Everybody would come to my mom's house. And that's how I started building a relationship with everybody. And they'd all rap over my beats, which would help me in my mixtape. So that was really kind of how I put it all together and then just started building from there.
I've been in New York for 12 years, but I came up in Cleveland and I had a similar story in that I was the only guy on the radio really trying to who understood the bigger picture and understood how to get out of my market, understood how to create an audience outside of Northeast Ohio. And so when the artists would come to Cleveland and they wanted spins or they wanted to come to the club or I'd be like, great, but you have to come to my house or my friend's house and record a freestyle and record this and record that. And it got to the point that I had a very similar story. I lived in one of the first high rises in downtown Cleveland, and it was above a House of Blues. So a lot of them would have shows at House of Blues. So I'd be like, fantastic. You knew me. I used to be way bigger. I was because I ate House of Blues chicken fingers every day because I would make the artists cool. You want to meet? Cool. I'm not leaving my building, so we're gonna eat downstairs. Yeah. And you're gonna come upstairs and you're gonna record some shit for me. I'm gonna put it on mixtapes, and we're gonna it's gonna help you, but it's gonna help me. And then if all that goes well, I'm going to play your song on the radio tonight too at 9:00. But it was the same kind of thing. It was a one-stop shop.
You were one of the guys. Yeah, you made yourself valuable to them. That first of all, if you get them right where you need to get them, and you have a great conversation, and you guys are eating and laughing and it's really easy. Yeah, let's go upstairs. But you were one of the people when I was coming up. There was only a handful of people that you could see making intellectual business moves with the product they were putting out. You know what I mean? I seen how you were doing things in a smart way. You weren't just throwing shit out.
My career happened for me because I was a good DJ that happened to be really smart, not a great DJ that it was okay at the rest of shit in life. And, you got to add a lot of hustle in there too, and some karma and all those other things too. But there were DJs that were a million times better than me. But I had the ability to read the room, not as a DJ, but as a human. That's so key.
It's funny you say that because I have a new book out right now called Win Big in the Music Business. And there's a section in there where I talk about, talent's not even the most important thing a lot of the times. You know what I mean? So your ability to sing or rap or DJ or produce, you think you're the hardest or the dopest in the world. Cool. But if you don't have the business smarts, you don't understand branding and marketing and networking and sustainability and scalability and financing, you don't understand all that stuff, you could be the dopest mother. You know how many dope motherfuckers I ran into that never ever make it or fall off? You know what I mean? Because they don't understand all of those things and the other nuances and the other ways that they have to, build their business and their brand. And I understood that early, and I could see someone like you did as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, all this was going on for the mixtapes and everything for me. I was also in grad school at the time, getting an MBA, which like never got me the real job they promised when I signed up for it, but it did prepare me for like the mindset I needed when I got out. But while I was in there, the professor actually told me in front of the class, like, you can't be creative and go into business at the same time. He was like, you need to choose one. You're basically fucking off your life. And I remember literally laughing and walking out of there. And I tell this story a lot, speaking of like colleges and stuff, like, don't listen to some of the shit that these teachers say, because I walked out of school that night and that was like the whole Michael Jordan getting cut from the JV team moment. Like that was that. Like I remember the sun. I remember walking to the car I had at the time. I was like, that is going to change the entire focus of how I approach my life.
It's funny you say that because, I also have a show on Twitch every Monday night. It's called Win Big with Clinton Sparks on my channel, twitch.tv/Clinton Sparks. And I have a bunch of entrepreneurs and actors, athletes, rappers, producers, like everybody that's won big and understands what it takes to win big. And the common denominator, man, is the same in almost every single winner. It's always the same. I think you know what it is. We all have the same one thing that drives through us. And it's like when you say no, or when you say it can't happen, or like no one else is doing it. That's the stuff that really fucking drives you to really go hard at what you're thinking about. And like, man, I can't tell you, especially I'm a white kid from Boston trying to make it at a time when hip hop was black in New York. So like everything's against me, right? Especially New York and Boston not liking each other. So like, how did that kid who had no connections, no money, no relationships, no nothing make it? Because everybody said I couldn't. And here's the thing too, is I really understood psychology very young. Here's one thing, it's one of the chapters in my book, or one of the quotes I have in my book that I say, and I learned this early, was don't get mad when people don't listen when you speak. Instead, learn to speak when people are listening. And I learned that tactic from record labels because executives were fucking dicks, right? And they thought they were on top of the world. And this is at a time when like hip hop was making all the money. And if you were an executive at a Def Jam or Interscope or something like that, you were the man and everyone was sucking you off, right? So I knew what they needed and I knew what they didn't know. So the reason why I was able to excel really fast and continue to move throughout my career, instead of just going there saying, I need this from you, what can you do for me? I always walked in from day one like, what do they need? How do they need to feel? What do I need to do or say to make them feel the way I need them to feel or the way they need to feel in order to want to do the things that I need them to do for me? And I knew that.
It's like dating in a way, right? Like you got to like set the mood. You got to like set the ambiance in order to get the answer that you want at the end of the day.
The word manipulating sounds like a negative word, but you have to really learn the art of understanding how to manipulate. And when you understand how to do that, but with good intentions and for a win-win-win scenarios, you really become a superpower. And I think that's one of the values and attributes to myself why I think I've excelled in my career is because I actually do give a shit about other people and I want other people to win. I don't even want to do something with somebody else unless I can make them win just as much as me, if not more than me. So I've never went into a situation like, what can I get out of this? Or what can you do for me without also thinking just as much, how do you win as well?
You could also look at it as like, you're just really arranging the chess pieces in a way to provide everybody the optimal, situation to come out. Like you're right. Manipulation does has a negative connotation in the way we use it in today's society. But yeah, if you look at it more like, I just need to move this guy here because not only will this be better for him, but it'll be better for me. And then the end result will be better. And then, it's just
Here's a good example, right? And this is what I mean by manipulating, right? Let's say I'm at a coffee shop with some girl and then my wife's friend sees that, goes back and says, yo, I seen Clinton like having a coffee and laughing with some girl at a coffee shop. Okay, remember, here's this girl, right? Now let's say she didn't see me at a coffee shop, but then she comes home a week later and we're like, surprise, happy birthday. And there's a surprise party at the house. And then this girl she never met walks over and I go, oh, this is Jill. She helped me put this party together. She's a party planner. Same girl, different situation, different introduction. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, that's what I mean. Like, you got to manipulate situations because a lot of times, even like making a beat, if you're a producer, a lot of times you don't want someone sitting behind you because the process to getting to where you want to get to, you don't want their opinion and you don't want them to weigh in, right? So you have to just do it on your own. It's like, I do this in all of my businesses. If you watch the process of how I'm moving the pieces or dealing with people and getting things done, you'll look at it like, oh man, look, he's being shady. Oh, yo, he's doing that. But I'm not. If you just don't see it until the end, you'll see everybody wins, right? But the thing is like people that are not as in tune or thinking at the high velocity of those of us that can actually see 10 steps ahead of what everybody else can see, they don't understand what the end result's going to be that you're working on when you're juggling all these balls. They're just looking at it like during the process, they're like, oh, he's doing something shady. Oh, he's just looking out for himself. Oh, he ain't think. But no, just shut up and just let me do what I'm doing. When we're done, everyone's going to win, including you, dickhead. So stop getting involved.
We all make decisions that people don't understand that we're making on the way up. And a lot of times you have to make decisions in order for you to float so the team can float. And so that you can float so that your family can float. And you're right. Like I've seen it where like you take 2 days off so you could actually like think. Because like my job in my life now is, and I fuck this up daily, but like if I made more time to think and less time to delve into the weeds of shit, man, like the results that happen when I take time where people think I'm being lazy or I think I'm not doing this or I'm cutting off the Zoom and I'm not going to do this call and I'm not going to do this thing just because I need to replenish my brain so that I can come up with my next idea, which is going to ultimately help my family, my friends, and everything else. Like those are the moments for me that are key. But I think oftentimes we don't give ourselves a chance to like do that.
To your point about, sometimes you got to help yourself to help other people. An example I use is like, if I walk up to a club with 10 dudes, right? And I'm like, yo, can we all get in? And I know the bouncer, he's going to be like, dude, you're with 10 dudes. I can let you in, but I can't let all those other guys in. But it's like, if I get into the club and then I go in and I finesse or talk to the right people or open the back door for you guys to get in now. So sometimes it's like, it's almost like a lion going out into the, to go hunt. You guys just sit here. I'm going to go get it and bring it back to you guys. And then we're all going to win. But yeah, man, a lot of people just don't understand. That's why, look, you need losers because you wouldn't have winners, right? There's way more losers than there are winners. And that's because winners think differently, they act differently, and they move differently. If you can just be a winner and understand how to do that with care and sensitivity for other people's feelings and having a keen awareness of how they may feel or how they may think, it's really being super intuitive to other people's feelings and the psychology of understanding how different people think different. Look, most people want to hang around like-minded people because they want their ideas and thoughts endorsed. So like if me and you were hanging out and I'm like, and I halfway through a story, I'm like, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, dude. And then you kind of finish my story for me, right? I've always been a fan of hanging out with people that don't think like me. You know what I mean? I want to know how to sell to everybody. And if I don't listen to how everybody thinks, or I combat the way that they think, or I think it's whack the way that they think, it's like, it's just different. And I need to understand that. Like even now in the craziest time where this side thinks this way and this side thinks that way. Why the fuck does this side think this way? It takes time to sit there and really go through like their past, where they grew up, where they're getting their information from. Like, so you got to really take time to understand other people if you really want to be great in business and personal relationships or sales.
Who were some of the first entrepreneurs in hip hop that really inspired you to think bigger than hip hop?
There isn't one person that I've ever looked at was like, my train of thought was, most people watch the best so they can emulate the best, right? I would watch the best to see what they're not doing right or what they're missing out on. So for instance, when we were coming up, the biggest person was Funkmaster Flex, right? When I first got on radio, I'm like, all right, I got to get on radio, but I got to stand out. So I watched to see who the biggest names are. Back when we were young, we'd be on those hits calls and we'd see like who the guys are that they care about the most, right? Who are the DJs that the labels would be like, got to send them a plaque, got to send them exclusives, right? And you'd see like people like Cosmic Kev and Khaled and Funk Flex and all these people. So I'd pay attention to them and see what they're doing. Then I realized they're all the fucking same. They all want to be Funkmaster Flex, right? They're all dropping bombs. They're all like, yeah, I mean, da, 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 ba, 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 ba. And they all wanted to be just as cool, if not cooler than the artists that they were interviewing, right? So my theory was, how do I stand out and be different? First thing I did is I treated myself like a brand and came up with a fucking catchphrase, get familiar. Nobody was doing that, right? So Clinton Spars, get familiar, right? And I thought it was great because I could tell you to get familiar with shit, but then also people could tell you to get familiar with me. So that's how I landed on that. Then my second approach was, first of all, my talent was already dope. So I didn't have to worry about that because I already knew I could crush anybody else when it came to like, side by side, who's killing it more. And there was very, very few of us that were creative in the mixtape. Like, you fall in the category, but typically I usually say like, me and Green Lantern were probably the two most innovative, creative DJs in the mixtape world. And you're right in that same category with your innovation.
I'm like 30 levels, 30 down from that. But yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I always felt that Clue figured out how to really market and monetize. And I always felt like Green knew how to be the most creative person that probably ever existed on the planet in the mixtape game. And so I always tried to find that middle lane where, how do you combine those? Like for me, that was kind of like my little rocket ship.
Yeah,
I was just like,
you did a good job at doing that.
I was never going to be as creative as Green Lantern, and I was never going to be as New York City marketable as a Clue. But if I could take a little bit from each and approach it from my Midwestern roots, it could probably work for me. And it did. And I think like a lot of people, if you look at different industries or different anything really, like everybody has the same chemicals. How are you taking the different chemicals and putting them in that little test tube and seeing what you come up with?
Me and Green,
you know,
all the time. Like, I love Green. I mean, like, he was my favorite DJ.
The nicest guy.
We were like each other's, like, kind of like, what did he do? What did he do? What was his intro like? What was my, you know what I'm saying? So we would always be like almost low key motivating and inspiring each other to be better than we were on our last project, because Green's coming for me or Clinton's coming for me. But back to what I was saying, so everyone wanted to sound the same. And I thought to myself, you know what I have in my advantage? I'm going to go on air and completely interview people the opposite way that these guys do. Now, I knew better, and I was a hip hop head, so I knew the answers, but I would approach my interview style as like a naive, innocent white kid that didn't know better. So I would ask questions that, like, you know, a black dude couldn't ask because it would cause friction between him and the rapper. But I could ask because it would almost be laughed off and be like, man, this white dude's crazy. Like Jay-Z, for instance. You know, I would say, Jay, you know, when you're on the road and you're traveling, you get lonely. Do you ever just like chill in your hotel room and like watch adult feature films? And then he'll be like, what you mean? And like his boys behind will be laughing. Like, what you mean? Like watching, I ain't got time for that. I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you get lonely, bro. You just got to like just watch adult feature films. And he'll be like, yeah, but what you going to do with that? And I was like, get familiar with yourself, dude. What else? And then everybody would die laughing, right? But like Funkmaster Flex could never talk about Jay-Z jerking off to pornos in his room. You know what I mean? Like, but I could get away with it. Jim Jones and Cameron would be on, and I'd do like multiple choice questions, and I'd say funny things like, to celebrate the success of Dipset, you and Cameron decided to go on a Dipset camping trip. Joel Santana packed your stuff for you, and when you got to the top of the long trek of the mount of the wooded glen, and then you get there, you realize Joel's only packed you guys a one-man tent. I mean, sleeping bag. Do you guys, A, sleep head to toe in the sleeping bag? B, take turns doing the sleeping bag? 3, just lay side to side and use each other's warmth. You know what I mean? It's like putting these like tough guys in scenarios that like nobody else could ever do that. And it's really what helped me excel in radio and what brought me to more stations, what made Paul and M call right when they got the opportunity to do Shade 45. They were like, yo, we need you right away. I helped them launch Shade 45. So it's who I really was anyways, right? But now I was just like, why do I have to try to be cool? You know what I'm saying? The way that I do it, what I do is cool. And that's what led me to become, you know, Diddy's tour DJ and everything else that I've done.
How did you start diversifying into investing from, you know, what you were doing in the music world? I look at them very much as the same world with different optics. You know, I look at them as very, very similar, you know, trains on different tracks that a lot of people don't connect the dots. You know, you've obviously connected those dots.
Do you mean in the business world?
Yeah. I mean, I just think like if you are good at marketing yourself as an artist and the skill sets that you've learned, I've learned this from the investing and advising stuff that I've done on my side, like what I learned from taking myself from nothing to something and taking myself from a small town in Ohio to New York and all the different, whatever it is that people do, it's just the skill set and it's a branding play and it's a mindset that doesn't have to just be regimented to one thing like DJing, music, rap.
I mean, that's why you never seen DJ in front of my name.
Yeah.
Always just like Clinton Sparks, right? What I do best, and I have done probably best, is I could sit in a room with JetBlue and Rick Ross and Johnson & Johnson and, you know, JP Morgan. And they'd all be sitting in a room thinking, oh, we have nothing in common. There's no reason for us to be in this room. And I'm the guy that could see the benefit of all of them and how they can all help each other and understand all of their languages and then be able to translate to each other what each other really wants to do with. Perfect example. I brought hip hop to Hollywood when I became a host on E! News. They never talked about hip hop. It was always Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, right? So when I went there, I ended up bringing Pharrell and Little John and Ray J and, you know, the Clipse and all these people because I knew people like Paris Hilton thought 50 Cent was cool and dangerous and wanted to hang out with him, but didn't know how to. 50 Cent thought the rich and powerful Hollywood people like Paris Hilton were fucking cool and they'd want to hang out with her, but didn't know how to. And they didn't know that about each other, nor did they know how to connect with each other. So I was the conduit that would always put Ludacris with Fall Out Boy, Kanye West with Paris Hilton. You know, I was that guy that always collided cultures because you're talking to a kid that grew up reading Word Up, Circus, Fangoria, and Mad Magazine, right? Like completely different worlds, but I read them all and enjoyed them all and understood them all, right? And then I listened to heavy metal while I was listening to hip hop. So that's who I've just always been. And I'm a kid who was in school. Like I was never part of one social circle. I was the guy in the cafeteria at lunch that would sit at, the black kids and the white kids and the jocks and the ESL kids and the kids downstairs. You never see them during school. You don't even know what they do. I would sit in all of those tables and be accepted. I'd be like talking to this kid over here and he'd be like, oh, shoot, dude, do you know that he does that too? And then I would introduce people. So I've always been someone that wanted people to connect and help people so they can elevate each other. And that just transferred that into the business world. And that's how I've been able to excel in that world. And I sit in circles sometimes with like people so rich that I don't understand like how I'm in this. I didn't even graduate high school. I got like cut off sleeves and a backwards hat. And all these guys are wearing $20,000 suits. And they're asking my opinion on the culture of their company or, culturally relevant things that they could be doing, or their son's trying to get into something. What do you advise? And, that's kind of like a lot of places I've excelled as well.
Let's talk about the book. I mean, obviously you've been giving out game for years, just being part of the culture, being a media personality, being, all the things that you've done. But like, what made you want to really package that up and just, give people these tools they need to succeed?
Well, much like yourself, throughout the years coming up, I've seen how shitty music executives were. And I also realized everyone's been misguided, misled, misinformed. And now in the day and age of the internet, where everyone's like, the whole internet lies, right? So there's never been a better time to make music and money and more opportunity for people to actually build careers with music because of everything that's easily accessible to them now, right? But now they're more misinformed than ever before, right? So it was a combination of always seeing how people were jerks when I was coming up. And I always wanted to like help people, the right way and not be like swindled by some guy who was at Rockefeller in 2005 and talks about he broke Jay-Z, so you should give him 10 grand to break your record now. Those kind of guys. And even now with the internet, you got these 21-year-old kids in Hollywood that, I can make you famous. I could do this, da, da, da. It's like, dude, you don't know shit, man. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you have these other guys that have been around for 20 years that are so like played out and don't know anything about current culture or the psychology of the youth now, or even all the platforms that are available that will say, I used to manage this guy and this guy 10 years ago. I can help you break your career. So I noticed like, one, I love helping people. Two, I've won at almost every single thing you can do in the music business and made millions of dollars, traveled the world, worked with the biggest names, built multiple multi-million-dollar companies. I understand, as I was saying, all the languages and how to translate them all. And then being in gaming and esports, which I've excelled in, I understand that space of gamers and streamers and influencers. Look, I've been around long enough to see rappers, athletes, influencers, viners, people come and go because they don't have the right information. They don't have the right team. They don't have the right guidance. They don't understand the future. They don't understand financial literacy. They don't understand mental and physical health. They don't understand any of this shit, right? They just pop off and they feel like they're the shit, and then they burn out and they wonder what happened because you had a shitty team and you had no information. So I wanted to be the guy that I realized there was no Gary Vee or Grant Cardone of the music industry or the DIY independent artist industry, which by the end of next year will be a $2 billion industry. So I was like, look, I actually care. So let me go in here and create products that can help these people and guide them and almost be like everybody's big brother. You know what I mean? Where I could like, no, don't do that. You should do this. And like, even in my intro, like Damon John wrote the foreword to my book, How to Win Big in the Music Business. You can get it at winbiginmusic.com. And by the way, to further cement the fact that I'm here to help, the book is free. So winbiginmusic.com, go get the book for free. Damon John wrote the foreword. But in the intro, I even say, I'm going to teach you how to do more dope shit and less whack shit. And that's pretty much what the entire book is. It's setting you up and psychologically preparing you for the decisions that you need to make and understand it. It's not like, here's how you upload your song to Spotify. It's more like, here's why you shouldn't do this because here's what it's going to result to. And here's why you need to pay more attention to this. So that's really what the book is all about.
The free aspect of the book is fascinating because I did not know the book was free, but what made me, which is maybe bad podcast research on my part, but what makes it so interesting, I'm glad I didn't know that because it just allowed me to realize how that connects with your past, right? Like mixtapes, we were doing the same thing, right? Mixtapes, we were putting mixtapes out. Eventually we all got to the point where we made a little money on mixtapes, but we weren't doing, mixtapes, we did it mostly for the love, mostly for free, mostly to get that music out there. And then, if great shit happened off of that, you could, but you had to do it for free to get it out there. So I love the fact that the book is free too. Did you kind of subconsciously connect those dots from your beginning to your end when you came up with that?
I mean, when helping others and just doing good and moving with good intentions is in your DNA, you don't really think different than that, right? So like, I'll give you a perfect example because you just brought up mixtapes. I remember one time when I'm sure you recall the Clips We Got It for Cheap series. It was one of the, recognized as one of the greatest mixtapes of all time, and by Rolling Stone and a bunch of other places, right? So I remember seeing Pusha and Malice on MTV one time, and they were like, man, it's so successful, blah, 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 blah. Like, they were almost more successful from We Got It for Cheap than they were for their albums, right? So they were like, yeah, Clinton's probably buying houses. And when I heard them say that, I was like, yo, these dudes are thinking I'm making money? Like, I would have given them half. Like, I would have never made money and not been like, yo, we made 100,000, here's 50. And that really bothered me that they thought that I was coming up off of them and wasn't sharing in the rewards of that. So like when I ran into Push, I was like, I told him that. He goes, nah, it's cool. And I go, no, 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 no. And I like really held him by his shoulders. I go, bro, I lost money on that mixtape. And I'll tell you why. When I would travel around the world, I'd press up more mixtapes, one costing me money, and then to put them on planes and give them away for free cost me money. And I did that to help you guys because I love you guys. And also the selfish reason is I want to promote my brand and my name because ultimately it gives me more gigs. I wasn't killing it making money. In fact, outside of mixunit.com, as a personal individual DJ, by the time I realized how to really get that Who Kid money, the drama shit happened. I just figured it out and I just got in touch with the right distributors. Like I was literally about to get $100,000 check from a distributor from one of my mixtapes. And, it's one of the biggest artists in the world to this day whose mixtape I was doing. You could probably figure out who it was. And I was about to get that check. And then all that shit happened. And I was like, damn. But when I figured it out, I was like, fuck, Who Kid figured this shit out 5 years ago? The one who buys a Lambo every time he puts out a mixtape. You and I, people like us, we were doing it for the good of the culture. We were doing it for our passion for the music. We were doing it because we wanted to get our creativity out there and for selfish reasons to promote our brand and get more gigs and be more important on radio. So it ties into now like always giving, always giving, always giving. And to be honest, if I got paid for the amount of time that I've given away for free to talk and help other people, I'd fucking be a zillionaire. So I wanted to give the book for free. Don't get me wrong. This is sort of the mixtape, meaning like this mixtape leads you to the gigs. And what the gigs are the other products and the course that I have with over 60 videos and my Twitch show and all those other things that will generate revenue, right? But this isn't like a sucker book where it like tells you the what, but not the how, like most people do. They give you like a magnet to bring you into something to really, here, I'm going to dangle this carrot. Here's all the things you need to know. Now, if you want to learn how to do it, you got to pay. Nah, this whole book like really gives you mad game. Someone like, if you've seen how I've won, this is how I've won. All the strategies, the antidotes, the methods, the formula. I literally lay out the formula to how any and everybody that continues to win, how they do it. And like, you don't even have to get the course if you don't want to. But if you want to learn really how to like be a super Jedi, everything's in the course. I have the biggest names from people with 17 million subscribers on YouTube teaching you how to create effective video content and how to monetize on YouTube and all that. I have 5-time Grammy-winning Fabian teaching you how to record music right, how to mix and master it. Director X telling you how to shoot videos right, how to cast for videos. I have Yo Gotti teaching you how to start your own independent label, how to A&R and find new artists, how to sign them, how to own your own masters. So I have the biggest names in the game in this course. I have Wendy Day, who you know well, teaching independent artists like what a 360 deal is, and all these like really verified official people in the course. You don't even have to go to music school. Like you can just get this course and everything, like going back to what me and you were saying earlier, like school never taught me how to win. Like it didn't teach me like how to actually excel. School didn't even teach me how to do a check register. Basic life shit. There needs to be a whole new smashing of the school's curriculums of a new modern day 2020 school curriculum of just basic understanding of life. You don't even know how to like treat a girl or vice versa when you're in school. Like they just teach you shit that you probably won't even need to ever even know. So, this book and this course combined, and then with my show every week, I have, entrepreneurs and successful people on there giving you game. But the course and the book, this isn't even me giving you a sales pitch. This is just me being matter of fact. You go get this book and this course, you don't need to go to a music school unless you're going to learn how to play an instrument. But as far as like, you'll never learn in music school what you will learn in my course because they don't even know this shit because they just read it from a book too. They didn't live it.
And they'll probably steal your book ideas and put it in their course next year. So hopefully they give you that big, check to come in and speak to them when the world opens back up. Before we get out of here, I just want to talk about what you're doing in the esports and the gaming and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I got into esports and gaming about 3.5 years ago with a company called FaZe Clan. At the time, they were just a bunch of popular kids, but they had no business structure or a roadmap or anything. They weren't generating revenue. I got in there from day one. I helped raise, the $40 million. I brought in all the biggest celebrity investors from Offset to Pitbull to Sway Lee to DJ Paul, Ray J, Troy Carter, Yo Gotti, Mark Wahlberg, all these guys into gaming and esports. Helped build that company, turned it from zero to a $240 million valuated company. I left it about 4 months ago to start my own esports and gaming lifestyle brand, which I'm building to be more like a culture club. So, Sway Lee just came over. We just signed Nigel Sylvester. So, we're bringing like all the best of the best, and like the common denominator is gaming, but we are also leading the space in diversity and inclusion, because that's what we realized was really lacking in the space when we were over at FaZe. And I realized there was so much more that could be done, especially being one of the leaders of gaming and music, intersecting the two. I felt limited where I was. Back to what we were talking about earlier, sometimes like when you can see 10 steps ahead and somebody else can't, that's above you, sometimes you just got to leave and go do it yourself, because they're never going to get it and it's always going to hinder you from going up. So, I had to leave and go do what me, Greg, and Will, who were running Karma Loop. We sold $1 billion in clothing. We were the hottest streetwear fashion website in the world. So we understand that. We've all built and sold companies. We've all been a part of culture for our whole careers. So when you go to a company with some kids, I don't mean this as a slight towards them, but they're young dudes that only knew content creating and trick shooting their whole life. They don't understand business. They don't understand scalability. They don't understand any of that stuff. So when you go to talk to them about strategy, nah, bro, that's cringy. I'm like, really? It's really cringy to build a brand that could make you $80 million in a few years. You know what I mean? They don't understand that, and they just want to do the what's happening right now, what's hot right now, what's the trend, what's the meme. They don't see down the road. So, and by the way, that wasn't disrespectful to them, because they do a lot of great things as well. But we went on to move on to do what we thought would be a great, not only just for us and the talent that we want to bring in, but building that culture club and really opening up the eyes to the gaming and esports world to see what this space really can be. And we will really lay down the path and the blueprint for what others can try to attempt to do. But at least it opens their eyes and sees that there's other opportunities out here other than what's been typical.
I love it. I know we went a little bit over what I thought we would do, but I just think it's so important for people to see, first of all, good people winning. B, longevity, because we do live in a world now where there's more one-hit wonders than ever. There's more one-year careers than ever. And there's more this is the hot new shit this year. And in 2 years, that not only does that hot shit not exist, but the technology that it was built on does not exist either. And so to see a 20-year, path with constant elevation and the way you've connected the dots over those years, bringing people forward with you is a really, really great, it's a beautiful success story. And I think everybody should be aware of it. I think everybody should try to follow it and emulate it. And everybody needs to get familiar with it. How to win big in the music business. It's out now. What's the website? You said Win Big in Music?
Win Big in Music, or you can always go to clintonsparks.com if it's easier for you to remember, and on all socials at Clinton Sparks.
Amazing. Clinton, great to see you, man. Much success for all this other future stuff you're doing, and we'll just stay in better touch. We got some cool common similarity things going on right now. So.
Yeah, let's do it. You'll always be Mick Boogie to me, so don't.
Oh, geez, we don't. No, that's the bank account goes smaller when that word gets said. So, all right. Yeah, thank you, man.
All right, buddy. Take care, Mick.
And that was it for another episode of The MICK Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate it. Please, please, please do us a favor. Wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcast, please, please subscribe to The MICK Show. Like The MICK Show. Write a review for The MICK Show. Leave a star rating for The MICK Show. Whatever you can do helps. 5 stars would be amazing. 4 stars would be cool. 4.5. I was never an A+ student in school. I was that B+ guy. So anything in that range, more than grateful for. Also, make sure you follow on social, Instagram @Mick, Twitter @IamMick. Let me know who you want to see on a future episode of The MICK Show so we could try to get them on for you. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here next week.